Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 382. And on this episode of the podcast, I'm talking about the Angels constantly missing the playoffs, even though they have Mike Trout. When you think of the biggest stars in baseball, many of them cemented their stellar careers in October. Reggie Jackson, Derek Jeter, David Ortiz, Randy Johnson, Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax, Mickey Mantle, Mariano Rivera, among others. Sadly, one of baseball's current stars has not been given a proper chance to shine in the playoffs, and I'm talking, of course, about Mike Trout, who has done everything you can and then some during the regular season. The 34-year-old is an 11-time All-Star, 9-time Silver Slugger Award winner, and a 3-time AL MVP award winner. Mike Trout, in his 15-year career with the LA Angels, has been to the playoffs one time in 3 games. He does have one career postseason home run. That appearance was all the way back in 2014. Since, the Angels have missed the playoffs 11 straight years. That's currently the longest streak of any team in all of baseball, and it's not like they've been close. The team hasn't been above 500 since 2015. Also, when you think about the fact that since 2022, there have been 3 wild card spots, that makes this all the more embarrassing for the franchise. It's hard to come up with other examples in the history of the sport where one of its great players repeatedly missed the playoffs. Here's what I came up with. Ken Griffey Jr. only made the playoffs 3 times during his illustrious career, but he had a real moment during the 1995 Mariners run. Ted Williams, you've heard of him? He only made the playoffs once in 1946, but that, of course, was during an era with no wild cards, and back then the only postseason round was the World Series. I mean, I'm at a point right now with Mike Trout where I don't even need him to win a World Series title. I just need him to have a postseason moment, for him to hit a big home run. In 1995, it was Don Mattingly's final year with the Yankees. He is long remembered as the great Yankee who never won a World Series title, but he was able to have a moment in 95. He made the playoffs. He had a home run during that series. That's what I'm looking for. Trout to have a great postseason moment. I'm not greedy. He's not going to win a World Series title as a member of the LA Angels anytime soon. Just get this man to the playoffs and let him have a moment. That's the thing about all of this, is no one is actually critical of Mike Trout, because unlike other sports, one player can only impact winning so much in the sport of baseball. The Angels during the Trout era have had great individual talents. Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani topping the list, of course, but putting together an all-around good roster has been the problem. They continue to put all of their money and resources into offensive players that ultimately do not pan out, Anthony Rendon, and seemingly put no thought and effort into putting a good pitching staff together. And I find this to be crazy, because when Mike Scioscia was a manager in 2009, the Angels had all 5 starters win double-digit games. It's excruciating to watch a team with a glaring hole decide not to fill it. That's what's so maddening about the LA Angels, is that their problems are fixable. They're not one of these smaller market teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates who can't put money into their baseball team. No, they have put money into their baseball team. They're just doing it the wrong way. They have not had an ace-level starting pitcher in forever. And even when they did have one in Shohei Ohtani, he was also an offensive player, so I'm not really sure that should even count. When I was growing up, the Angels had John Lackey, Irvin Santana, Jared Weaver, like legitimate, good starting pitchers. The way the Angels have managed their ball club over over the last decade has made it almost impossible to root for them as an organization. When thinking about this topic, it's interesting to talk about what this means for Trout's overall legacy, that he hasn't been to the playoffs a lot. Like, what does it mean for him being viewed as an all-time great player? But then another aspect of all of this is, what has it meant to the sport that the postseason has lacked one of its signature names? I'll admit, in the year 2025, it's not a big deal that Mike Trout is not playing in the postseason. He's not as big as he used to be. But in 2020, it was a huge deal that Mike Trout was always missing the playoffs. Think about it. Not that many people are watching regular season LA Angels games in the mid-afternoon. We were all expecting for him to make the playoffs, and then we would see Mike Trout play on a national stage. But that has never happened. And even when he was winning those MVPs, there were some murmurs that were saying that he shouldn't be winning an MVP on these really bad baseball teams. Those people did exist. There are some fans out there of sports that only take athletes seriously when they are winning games. And Mike Trout, I know it's a team sport, has not won a lot of games. What does the future really hold for Mike Trout? Trout is in a weird position in that he's not as good as he used to be. He misses time every season. No team is going to trade for him and take on that contract, so it appears as though his only hope of making the playoffs rests in the hands of the LA Angels. And that's where I'm at with this particular player. The numbers no longer matter. He's an all-time great. He just got to 400 home runs. He's making the Hall of Fame. The only thing left is getting him chances to play in October, and it's hard to feel good about that right now. My feelings are obvious. I think the Angels owe him a trip to October, but there's a part of me that thinks they're going to come this offseason to him and say, we're about to go into another rebuild mode, and that is the absolute worst case scenario for Mike Trout's career. I believe it is entirely possible he never makes it back to the playoffs as long as he's a member of the LA Angels, and I don't think this franchise is going to eat any of his money to send him to a good team, even though that's what he deserves. The age-old question is this: can a star player be too loyal to one team? Fans used to say Kevin Garnett was too loyal to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we all know what happened when he was finally moved. He won a title. For my money, Dame Lillard waited too long to leave the Portland Trailblazers. I'll admit, this does happen way more in basketball, because what's Trout supposed to do? Turn down $426 million? That's the contract he got from the LA Angels. He's in this situation because he made the best financial decision of his life. I think it is worth noting that his counterpart, Bryce Harper, got a mega deal in free agency from the Philadelphia Phillies that has worked out great for Harper. So it is very likely that Trout could have gotten the same money, if not even more money, from another franchise. Could he be a member of the Yankees right now, being paired with Aaron Judge? Could he have been a member of the New York Mets, the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago Cubs? You know, the major players. But at the end of the day, isn't it really hard to fault a guy for wanting to remain loyal to one franchise? And I know what some people say. I feel like one of the major knocks about Mike Trout is the fact that he was seemingly unwilling to be the face of baseball the way that Aaron Judge is currently for the New York Yankees. That Mike Trout doesn't want the spotlight, that he just wants to be a baseball player who quietly goes about his business. So yeah, maybe the guy didn't want to be Reggie Jackson and say that he's the straw that stirs the drink, but I do believe that Mike Trout obviously wanted to win more baseball games with the LA Angels. I mean, I really started to feel bad for him after Shohei Ohtani left for the LA Dodgers. That's when I was like, what's really going to end up happening here with Mike Trout and the Angels? He's once again the only star player on the roster. He's no longer the Mike Trout he used to be. He's not the guy who's going to win MVPs on bad teams. Now he's just on a bad team. He can still put put up solid numbers. He has 22 homers on the season, but he's batting just .229. I mean, this is not the Mike Trout who was the king of WAR. Back when he was at the height of his power, Mike Trout was getting compared to Yankees great Mickey Mantle. And I think the two are similar in that both of them dealt with injuries throughout their career. The difference is Mickey Mantle played for an all-time great baseball team. So when he was younger and healthy, his team, the Yankees, won the World Series a lot. And in the case of Mike Trout, the Angels completely wasted his prime. I still think Mike Trout is a very good baseball player, but he should nowhere near be the best player on a baseball team. He needs to go to a place that has a great core roster around him, but the money is just way too high for a team to invest in acquiring him. Let's talk about the current state of the LA Angels. They do have good players other than Trout. Outfielder Joe Adell has really found himself this season with 36 home runs, and shortstop Zach Neto has 23 home runs. This goes back to my thing. Offensively, the Angels are not that far away from being a half-decent baseball team. They have some guys who can put up some numbers. This offseason, they need to go all in for starting pitching. The names they need to be in on: Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, Framber Valdez. Bring in a guy you can pencil in as your number one starter who's going to win you between 10 to 15 games a year, who's going to throw 150 to 200 innings a year. Someone reliable. The Angels should also be in on the trade market. They should go all in for Twins ace Joe Ryan. That's the type of guy that the Angels need. Somebody who's good right now, but also has the potential to get even better. Like I've been saying on this podcast, the Angels owe it to Mike Trout to get back to the playoffs, but they also owe it to themselves because they don't really feel like a team that's in rebuild mode. They don't have a bunch of young talent. You go, wow, the Angels are a few years away from being one of baseball's best. No, they are in a no-win zone. It's time for them to do something this offseason that gets them to a place where you go, yeah, the Angels, I'll take them for real for an entire summer. Instead of, by the time July comes around, we no longer need to take them seriously as a baseball team, because that's what it's been the last few years for the Angels. I really do think the most Angels move of all time would be for them as an organization to ignore the starting pitching that's out there and go after all-star free agent outfielder Kyle Tucker. That would be so LA Angels of them to do. I'm really hoping they don't. I love Kyle Tucker as a player. The Angels are not a Kyle Tucker away from being a good baseball team. They are a good pitching staff away from being a good baseball team. They need to seriously invest in starting pitching. This past offseason, they brought in Kikuchi. He's a good number 2 starter, possibly a number 3 starter, but they need a legitimate ace if I'm going to look at them and go, wow, this could be a team that could make the playoffs. I can't reiterate how insane it is to have baseball have 3 wildcard spots and for you to not be in it. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense how the Angels got to where they are right now. And Mike Trout is the biggest victim of this because he's been there the entire time. He was there when the Angels went all in and brought in Albert Pujols and those big signings didn't pan out. And then you add the Anthony Rendon signing on top of that. Ohtani walked out that door, and I'm sure that Mike Trout wants to do so as well, but probably realizes it would be crazy for him to demand a trade right now when his value is at, I'm sorry to say, an all-time low. Trout is owed over $37 million each of the next 5 baseball seasons. The teams that can afford to pay that are not going to be in on bringing in a 34-year-old aging outfielder who's no longer the face of baseball. And I don't think we live in a world where the Angels are going to buy out the remaining years of his deal, and nor do I think that Mike Trout wants that. Although what he does want, which is to make the playoffs as a member of the Angels isn't entirely plausible right now. I mean, what are the Angels really going to do? I think they're going to try to spend some money this offseason. Do I think they're going to go all in? Do I think they're going to trade for Joe Ryan? I absolutely do not. But they are also in a no-win situation where they don't have the young talent that's coming. I mean, yes, Joe Adell is good. Zach Nato is good. But those guys are good right now. Those guys are other examples as to why you should be trying to win right now. I think people are dying to see Mike Trout in a big game. I mean, a few years ago, he was treated as a big deal that he was playing in the World Baseball Classic. You know what's bigger than the WBC? October baseball. I mean, I really hope that one of these teams that just doesn't care about money, like the Dodgers or the Padres, just goes all in and brings in Mike Trout. That's what this guy deserves. He deserves to play for a baseball team that is putting together a good team around him. This past week, it was announced that Dodgers ace Clayton Kershaw is retiring from the sport. There's a guy who's played in an abundance of postseason games, and I know some people think that Clayton Kershaw has been lackluster during the playoffs, but that's a guy who has 2 World Series titles and is possibly going to win a third on a franchise for the Dodgers, who has been to the postseason every year since 2013. And yet Mike Trout hasn't played in a postseason game since 2014. That is wild. I mean, people talk about how the Mets are the little brothers to the New York Yankees. No, the Angels are really the little brothers to the LA Dodgers. They are nowhere near the same ballpark. At certain points, it feels like they're not even playing the same sport. Shohei Ohtani is going to be remembered far more for being a member of the LA Dodgers than he was a member of the Angels, because he's going to win a lot of baseball games and many more World Series titles are in his future. And some of you will listen to this and say that the difference between the Dodgers and the Angels is the fact that the Dodgers spend a lot of money. The Angels in the past have spent big money. They gave Mike Trout $426 million. The difference is the Angels are obsessed with spending on the individual talents. They sign the big player and then they want you to treat that like it's a monumental move. Like when they signed Albert Pujols and CJ Wilson and Josh Hamilton. Those were all big moves. They wanted to catch your eye. Yes, the Dodgers spend on the big players. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, you name it. They sign those guys, Shohei Ohtani, but they also pay on the margins for the talent around those guys. They are the deepest team in baseball. Teoscar Hernandez, for example, right now is probably the 5th best hitter in the Dodgers lineup. If he were playing for the Angels right now, he would be their best player. That is the difference between the Angels and the Dodgers, how deep one of them is compared to the other. The Angels are still at a place where they can't survive an injury from Mike Trout, and he's no longer the Mike Trout he was 5 or 6 years ago when he was the best player on the planet, and we all understood why they couldn't survive without him. Right now, it's like, how are you still this bad of a baseball team? We all want the Mike Trout story to have a happy ending, that he finally ends up winning a World Series title. I don't see that happening, and I don't know if the Angels are ever going to make it back to the playoffs with Mike Trout on the roster. I'm rooting for it because I'm rooting for Mike Trout, but I'm not rooting for the LA Angels because they have gone about things the wrong way when it comes to this particular player. They did not take advantage of the fact that they had the best player in the world. Look at what the Yankees have done around Aaron Judge. They brought in Giancarlo Stanton, Garrett Cole, Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger. They have made moves around Aaron Judge. Yes, at times it does feel like Aaron Judge is carrying the New York Yankees, but the Yankees have always had other good players around him. That has not been the case for Mike Trout, especially since Shohei Ohtani left the team. Believe me, I wish I were doing a podcast celebrating the fact that Mike Trout just hit his 400th home run. Instead, I have to bring out how ludicrous it is that this guy has not played in the postseason in 11 straight years. And it's not just that he hasn't played in the postseason, he hasn't really even gotten all that close. And that's on the Angels. It's not on Mike Trout. I hope Mike Trout plays in October in the next year or so. Please get this guy in the playoffs. He's an all-time great and he deserves better. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.